My name is Virginia. I am 22 years old, and I live with my mother in a small house on the edge of town. My father passed away when I was 12, and from that day on, my mother carried everything alone. She worked as a cleaner at a local school, waking up before sunrise every single morning. She came home each evening with tired eyes, rough hands, and swollen feet. But no matter how exhausted she was, she always smiled the moment she saw me walk through the door. I never appreciated any of it. When I was younger, I was selfish and blind. I was ashamed of her simple clothes, her quiet ways, her rough hands. I wanted a mother who looked polished and elegant. Instead of feeling grateful, I felt embarrassed. I mocked her silence. I mocked her tears. I never once stopped to think about what she had sacrificed just to keep us going. One afternoon, I came home from college in a terrible mood. Some girls had laughed at me for wearing cheap clothes. I cried the whole way home, my chest burning with humiliation. When I walked through the door, my mother was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of rice. She looked up and smiled warmly. She said, "Virginia, come and eat. You must be tired and hungry." Something inside me snapped. I looked at her and shouted, "Why do you always cook the same boring food? Why can't we ever have something nice? Why can't you be like other mothers who dress well? You embarrass me." Her smile disappeared instantly. She said nothing. She simply turned back to the stove. I noticed her shoulders trembling, but I chose to ignore it. I went to my room and slammed the door behind me. That night, I heard her crying through the thin wall between our rooms. She was trying to muffle the sound, but I could still hear it clearly. I pressed my pillow over my ears. I told myself she was being dramatic. I told myself she deserved it. I fell asleep without a single moment of guilt. The next morning, she got up and cooked breakfast for me as if nothing had happened. That somehow made me even more irritated. I didn't apologize. I didn't even look at her properly. Days went by and I continued treating her the same way, cold and careless. I never noticed that she was growing weaker. I never noticed her hands shaking when she cooked, or her voice breaking when she spoke softly to herself. Then, one cold winter morning, everything fell apart. I woke up late and immediately started shouting because my uniform hadn't been ironed. I called out to her sharply, demanding an answer. There was no response. I walked into the kitchen and found her sitting on a chair, her head resting in her hands. I called her name again. She still didn't answer. I stepped closer and saw her eyes were half closed. My heart stopped completely. I grabbed her shoulders and shook her gently, calling her name over and over. She didn't respond. I ran to the neighbors in a panic. They rushed her to the hospital while I stood outside, trembling, unable to think straight. When the doctor finally came out to speak with me, his words cut straight through me. He said she had collapsed from extreme exhaustion and stress. She hadn't been eating properly for days. I walked into her room and saw her lying on the hospital bed, thin and pale, with tubes running along her arms. Everything I had said to her over the years came flooding back at once. Every cruel word, every dismissive look. I stood there and cried in a way I never had before, deep and uncontrollable. And yet, even in that moment, lying helpless in a hospital bed, my mother looked at me and tried to smile. She whispered, "Don't cry, Virginia." Those words destroyed me completely. Even now, she was still trying to protect me from pain. I sat beside her, took her worn hand in both of mine, and wept like a small child. I told her I was sorry. She slowly lifted her hand and touched my face with her rough, gentle fingers. She said, "I know, my child, your mother will always love you." In that quiet hospital room, something shifted inside me permanently. I finally understood what real love looked like. After she came home, I became a different person. I cooked with her, cleaned alongside her, and sat with her in the evenings. I found a part-time job to help with the household expenses. One quiet evening, we were sitting together drinking tea. She looked at me gently and said, "You've grown up now, my love." Tears filled my eyes immediately. She was right. And from that day forward, I never raised my voice at her again. I never let a moment of disrespect slip past my lips. When I look at her hands now, I no longer see roughness. I see strength. When I hear her voice, I hear love in its purest form. When she wakes me up in the morning, I pull her close and hug her. She laughs every time and asks what happened to her angry daughter. My mother never had a fancy job or expensive clothes, but she gave me everything that truly matters. She gave me love. If you still have your mother, please don't wait. Don't wait for a hospital room. Don't wait for silence. Don't wait for it to be too late. Tell her today. Hug her right now. My mother is my greatest blessing, my truest home, and the reason I know how to love at all.